Hello everybody, Pericles here with a brand new video. Normally I'd only upload once a week, but since the channel trailer yesterday didn't really count as a real video, I'm uploading one today. Today's video marks the start of a monthly series I'm doing, a monthly build guide series where I take a specific type of computer, so for gaming or editing or workstation or something like that, and then create a build guide for it to allow you guys to better understand what's good for what type of computer and to ultimately make a computer following my guide or changing a few things so you can get the best computer that's right for you. Before we get started, I'd just like to say that you could take any component in this computer and change it to something that you like better. If you think something's too expensive and something else is too cheap, you can change it around. This is not set in stone. I'm just offering my input. So without further ado, let's get started. So for today's build, I decided to go for a budget gaming computer for around $500. However, this is a very capable gaming computer. You can run all games at 1080p at very good settings. So for the CPU, I went with an AMD FX 6300. It's a 6-core processor. It's very good for gaming, very good for budget gaming. Let me say that. Some of you may be saying that an i3 outperforms it in most games, which it is true, but there are some games now that don't let dual-core CPUs play them, right? And an i3 is a dual-core CPU. So I decided to go with the AMD FX 6300 instead because it's a 6-core CPU rather than 2, and it'll support all games. Besides, the i3 doesn't really outperform it by anything significant. For the motherboard, I went with the MSI 970A G43 standard ATX size motherboard. It's a 970 chipset, so not the best for overclocking, but you can do some basic overclocking on it. It's a blue motherboard, and it's cheap, but it's reliable, and it works pretty well. To keep the blue theme going, for RAM, I went with Crucial Ballistics Sport XT 2x4GB sticks, so 8GB in total, of DDR3 RAM. Right, and this speed is at 1600 megahertz right now, which is the standard for DDR3. It'll get the job done. It's cheap. For storage, I just went with a basic Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB drive with a speed of 7200 RPM, which is basically, if you're getting anything lower than that, what's the point? So it's a very reliable drive. I actually have 2 of them in my own system. Never had any issues with it. Very good, very fast, very affordable. For the graphics card, I decided to go with the EVGA GeForce GTX 950, which is the successor to the very popular GTX 750 from 2013. This card has 2GB of VRAM, and it's a super clocked card, which basically means it's faster than other 950 cards. It has EVGA's very successful, very practical and efficient cooling system, ACX 2.0, which gets a lot of praise. Overall, it's just a very good performer for gaming. Moving on to the power supply, I decided to go with EVGA again, the EVGA 500B 80 plus bronze certified 500 watt power supply. What is the 80 plus rating, you may be asking if you're new to the PC building scene? 80 plus is essentially the efficiency rating on a power supply. 80 plus bronze is the lowest you want to go. There is just regular 80 plus, but no one really recommends it. It gets too hot and it not efficient enough. 80 plus bronze and above is really what you want from a power supply. Again, it's 500 watts. Non-modular. Unfortunately, there's going to be a little bit of a cable mess, but it's not too big a deal if you know what you're doing. I've built a couple machines with that power supply already. Never heard a single complaint from the owners of them. Very good power supply. I recommend it. For the case, I decided to go with the NZXT Source 210 mid-tower case. It's a cheap case, but it's effective and gets the job done just fine. It has some disk drive bays if you want to put one of those in. It has a bunch of hard drive bays. It supports ATX and smaller size motherboards, which is a given for any mid-tower case pretty much. And you can opt for a windowed model, which lets you see all the pretty insides of your PC. This case gets very good reviews, I highly recommend it. And lastly, for keyboard and mouse, to fit the $500 budget, I went with the cheap Cooler Master CM Storm Devastator gaming bundle, which comes with a keyboard and mouse for around 25 bucks. They're cheap, they feel cheap, they're plastic, but they do a pretty decent job when it comes to gaming. You won't be lagging behind the competition using these. This is one of the most popular keyboard and mouse bundles available for gamers, and there's a reason for that, because it works well, and it's cheap. So finally, the base total comes to $517.81, but if you use the rebates, you can get it for just under 500 bucks, $498.79. Now, here's a little piece of advice for those who are new to the PC building scene. Here are a couple things you could customize or change to get better performance out of this computer. First off, I would recommend getting a CPU cooler, an aftermarket CPU cooler, for the processor so you can overclock it. I did not include one in this parts list for budget purposes, but I highly recommend one if you can just spare $20 more. Pick up a Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo. It's one of the best air coolers on the market, and it's incredibly cheap, incredibly efficient. I actually used it for about a year. I really, really liked it. And that'll give you a lot of room to overclock. On the stock cooler that the AMD FX 6300 comes with, you do not want to overclock on that. You will probably fry your CPU. Another thing you could do is change the case or add more storage or something like that. If you have the money, I recommend getting an SSD along with the hard drive. An SSD is a solid state drive. It's essentially another hard drive, but it works differently and it's much, much faster. I recommend that you install Windows on that if you're going to get one. As for cases, I can't really recommend any cases cheaper than this because at that point it's just becoming way too cheap. But if you have some extra money to spend, I recommend getting the Phanteks Enthoo Pro or the Define R5, or the Phanteks Enthoo Pro M, which is a cheaper version of the Enthoo Pro. There are a lot of good cases out there that you could pick, and those are just a few that I recommend. If you're looking to do more than just gaming, like for example, streaming or something like that, I actually recommend getting a better processor. If you can't afford to go Intel, I would recommend getting the AMD FX 8350, which is 8 cores instead of 6 cores. So those are just a few examples of things you could change to fit your preferences better and to fit your budget better. Like I said, this parts list is not set in stone. You can change anything you want to make this fit your needs better. And you can always upgrade parts later down the road without much hassle. So that was my build guide, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. Like if you enjoyed it, comment what you changed or what you liked about the build guide or what you didn't like, any feedback you have for it. I'll gladly listen to it and take it into account for next time. So again, like and comment if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more content. And I'll see you guys next time.